Hey guys, and welcome back to another match preview and prediction video. It's Jannik versus Ben Shelton at the 2025 Australian Open semi-finals, and I can't wait to get into this one. It's going to be an exciting, explosive matchup, and Jannik Sinner is going into it a big favourite, of course, given he is the world number one, the defending champion, and he seems to be extremely hard to beat on a hard court, given he won the Australian Open and also the US Open last year. For Ben Shelton, it's his first ever Australian Open semi final, but it's not his first ever Grand Slam semi final. He made the semi finals of the US Open in 2023, losing to eventual champion Novak Djokovic. So he's going to look to go one better. And what a win it would be if he were to get one over the Italian in this match. Before we do get into it, though, remember to that like button, do subscribe if you're new, and do leave a rating or review if you are listening on a podcast platform. I'm going to try and keep this one very concise and hopefully informative at the same time. So for Jannik Sinner, he's had a pretty easy route, I think it's fair to say, to this stage. And it hasn't been without his trials, though, in fairness, because of some physical issues. He struggled against Runa physically. I think he was feeling a little bit ill. And, look, what I will say is that he's come through it. And like the true champion he is, he's worked his way through any issues on court that he's had. Jarry, Schoolcake, Giron, Runa, and Dimona all thrown to the wayside by Jannik. And the match against Runa was very entertaining, to say the least. That was a match where Runa took a set off him. The other player to take a set off him, you might not guess it, was Australian Schoolcake. So a really impressive performance from him. For Shelton, he's had, I would argue, a slightly harder route. Nakashima in the first round was a tough first round opponent. Corona Busta, Musetti, Monfils, and Sonego. Some entertaining matchups there as well, of course, including the Monfils and Sonego matches. In terms of the head to head, well, it's actually very much in favor of Sinner, 4-1 in favor of the Italian. He did lose to Shelton in 2023 in their first match in Shanghai in 3 sets, but since then it's all been Jannik. He hasn't dropped a set since that match in Shanghai, beating him in Vienna, Indian Wells, Wimbledon, and then in Shanghai he got his revenge the year after, beating Shelton there as well. So I want to talk mainly about what Shelton needs to do to beat Jannik because, look, Jannik is so solid in so many different facets of not just his game, but I think on tour as well. He's one of the most complete players. He's one of the best servers. If you look at the serve leaderboard on the ATP website, he's up there. He's number 5. And ironically, Shelton is just below him in number 6. He's obviously got a bigger serve than Jannik, but in terms of effectiveness and in terms of backing up that first serve and second serve, Jannik is a shade above him in those stats. And then if we were to look at return leaders, well, Jannik is at number 3, only behind Carlos Alcaraz and Alex de Minaur. For Shelton, I mean, you'd have to scroll pretty far down to find out where he is. He's nowhere to be seen in the top 10, top 20, or even top 30 of return leaders. So that's something to bear in mind when we talk about this matchup as well. And then if we talk about athleticism, well, again, Jannik is, I think, arguably the more athletic out of the two. Not to say that Shelton isn't athletic. He's extremely athletic, but Sinner is, he's in the top 3 players on tour when it comes to athleticism. I think that's fair to say. So, yeah. The one area that I think Shelton particularly does have an edge on Sinner, and Sinner is improving in this area of his game, is at the net. I do think Shelton is extremely natural with his hands in the net. Sinner is not the same. So how can Sinner win this tactically? Because I think from Sinner's point of view, there's lots of different things he can do, and he's obviously the big favourite, so we don't really need to talk about what he needs to do, in all honesty. I think for Ben, he needs to serve extremely well. He needs a red line. I think he mentioned after one of his matches that he doesn't feel like he's served at his best in the majority of his matches. I think he said he'd served his best in maybe one of his matches. He's got one of the biggest serves on tour. It's not as big as a Pericard, but I don't think anyone's serve is on tour at the moment. We don't have and Isner. I mean, Opelka is up there, in fairness. I think it's fair to say Opelka's with him in that category, but apart from those two, there's no one else. So, yeah, Shelton is in that rung below, and we've seen him consistently clock 140 mph plus first serves. With him, I think it's been a case of maybe not hitting his spots at times, not finding the consistency. He talked about taking some pace off his first serve if he wasn't making enough first serves, slicing it, dicing it, hitting that kick serve as well, which we know is very potent from him, and with that fast, whippy shoulder action. So those are a few of the things to bear in mind. But for me, I think he needs to serve big to Sinner even, and also add in some variety. And that's always important to keep Jannik second guessing, make sure that Sinner doesn't get into a pattern of being able to read the Shelton serve and also being able to anticipate from, say, the toss or even just patterns of play where Shelton's going to land that first serve. So, obviously the first serve percentage needs to be high, but he also needs to be maximizing it. Taking a bit off against Sinner on a consistent basis in this match is not going to work. He needs to go for broke, I think it's fair to say. I don't think it's a weird thing to say in this scenario. I think he's going to have to play extremely well and max out. And then I think he needs to be extremely aggressive. There's no point playing on the back foot against Sinner. He needs to try and dictate in the points, be on the front foot, be the one who is forcing Sinner to play off the back foot, play defense, as the Americans like to say. I'd say defense. And get Sinner to play in a reactive way rather than a proactive way. And that is going to give Shelton some advantage. There will be some points where he'll charge the net, and it would have been a decent approach, but Sinner is so athletic. He's got the ability to pass you extremely comfortably and with so many different shots and ways and angles that he may be frustrated at times. But I think Shelton needs to come to the net as much as possible, shorten the points, be aggressive. The longer the points go on, the more he gives Jannik a chance to wrestle momentum back into his favor in the rally. I think the harder it becomes, in honesty. And, on the return games, I think Shelton just needs to make Sinner play. I don't think he's the best returner, and I think he needs to mainly focus on his own service game. And I think it's important that he varies it up because Sinner's forehand and backhand return, there isn't too much disparity between the two. I don't think either one is stronger than the other. They're both strong. With some players like Zverev, okay, well, his backhand returns better than his forehand return, so you go into the forehand. But I don't think you can say the same thing about Sinner or even. One thing that Shelton should definitely utilize, and maybe isn't utilized as much in this era of tennis, is the body serve. It just means that Sinner's not able to, kind of get any leverage off the forehand or backhand side. He has to really work for it when it's to the body, and he can get jammed up. The other thing as well is that he's been attacking the second serve really well, so I think Shelton needs to be very aware of that and not go safe on the second serve. It needs to be brave on it. So I think being brave is the biggest thing for me, being proactive in the points, shortening them, coming to the net when he can, and redlining off the first serve. And I think from the baseline, he needs to try and dictate with the forehand early doors. That +1 shot's going to be key. And choosing the time when I think to be aggressive, when not to be, because if he is just aggressive for the sake of it in moments when he shouldn't be, then he will hit a whole load of unforced errors. So there's definitely a balance to be struck here, no doubt. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how Shelton does play for one, and also how he approaches this matchup. In my opinion, I think it's going to be intriguing for the most part. The one thing I did want to say as well is that, I think for Shelton, he needs to be very much confident in his game plan and be decisive and stick with it. This is the way forward. He plays a different way, I think he will struggle. So my prediction is going to be Sinner in 4 sets. I do think Shelton could potentially take a set, but I don't think he'll get the win. Let me know in the comment section below who you think is going to win and why. Thanks very much, guys. Stay safe and well. See you on the next video.